So, no, I wouldn't say I have a passion for HR.
Welcome back to Human Resources for the People. It's a human capital revolution. Today we're going to be talking about laws in Pakistan. This is part of my comparative human resources series where we talk about hiring and firing all around the world. Today we're going to be talking about, again, Pakistan and firing someone there. Terminating for cause in Pakistan is possible and without cause. Similar to the United States, you can terminate with or without cause. Cause is typically being defined as misconduct in Balochistan or in Pakistan. We'll talk about Balochistan in a moment. And it's what you kind of expect for misconduct when you're terminating for cause: willful insubordination, theft, fraud, dishonesty, habitual negligence and or neglect of work, habitual breach of any law applicable to the establishment, habitual late attendance, and go slow. Which not surprising here. I think the most interesting thing is that there is a difference in Balochistan, which also defines misconduct as poor quality of production, and I think that is well, so Balochistan is a manufacturer for China. A lot of things that are too cheap to go to China are made in Balochistan. And as a result, I'm curious if this stipulation about poor quality of production, has pull from China. No idea, don't know, but I think that that's an interesting thing. You'll see that Balochistan plays a kind of huge a role in having different beliefs about working and so forth. And I think that is curious, right? We all are familiar with Kashmir. I can see how that might have different philosophies with respect to work. I believe Balochistan is more Islamic than the rest of the country. I could be wrong on that. Please correct me down below. But I do think that that might play a role. We've seen Islamic labor law be slightly different than the rest of the world. Going on to whether or not you need to give notice for permanent workers and non-managers, the employer is bound to give at least 1 month of prior notice or wages for 3 months in lieu of notice to terminate employees without cause. But if you terminate for cause, you don't have to give any notice at all. Balochistan has its own rules on this, and I again find that extremely interesting. I think of Jammu and Kashmir when I think of independent states or states that kind of go their own way in Pakistan and India, but I don't think of Balochistan. However, it is a very different state. When terminated, workers get a severance pay. It's payable upon the termination as long as it's not for cause. Workers get 30 days wages for every year of service completed. But again, in Pakistan, they treat their employees a little bit different, or they treat their work a little bit different than the United States. For example, in Pakistan, there's no legal requirement for an employer to give an end of service payment, gratuity, or any other severance to employees other than workers. But if there's a requirement to give severance pay under the employment contract, the employer has to abide by that. I kind of think of this with respect to some states in the United States, which hold that employers don't have to pay out vacation pay, accrued vacation pay, when it happens. However, if the employer's handbook calls that out and says that they'll pay it, they have to pay it, and there's not much you can do about it. And that's sort of a lesser known rule in many states. So many states do have some sort of accrued payment of vacation. Many states do not, but there is in a lot of states, and I would say a majority, and if I had to look, a majority of states that actually require that if you put it in the policy that you have to abide by it. And of course, as you can imagine, policy is not a contract. There's only two causes that protect an employee from dismissal, and I think that's very interesting. Many states and many countries have quite a few reasons why someone couldn't be fired, and many of them, specifically involve race, gender, sex, religion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But Pakistan is completely involved with the trade unions. So you can't fire someone because they're a member of a trade union and intends to become or persuade any other member to become one. That is, again, extremely curious in a country that, doesn't protect any other classification other than the trade union. What's interesting, I think, is that there is no mandatory retirement age for a non-government private employer in Pakistan. Now, mandatory retirement ages, outside of specific industries would be considered discriminatory in the United States, based on ageism. However, Pakistan has a very young population, and it may behoove them to have a mandatory retirement age, if only to bring in new blood, allow people to move up the ranks and retire out older groups, especially with a rising population that is quite young. Again, what's interesting is that Pakistan allows for a private employer to impose a mandatory retirement age through its policies, as long as that policy is not discriminatory. But in the United States, mandatory retirement age program would be considered discriminatory in and of itself, right? Outside of any federal labor laws that specifically have to do with, for example, I believe the air traffic controllers have a mandatory retirement age. Someone correct me down in the comments down below. Let me know. Let me know what you think about this one. I think Pakistan is a really interesting country. In many ways, it reflects the United States with respect to its labor laws. Like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye, guys.